We are live. Welcome, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me adjust this here. Mic check, mic check. Okay, everything's working. Awesome. All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. Today we're on day 17, and it looks like the defense has rested their case. It came as a surprise. I think they were expecting maybe one or two more witnesses. I don't know, but I'm assuming they would have said something at the end of the day yesterday if they were finished. So I'm assuming they had maybe at least one or more witnesses that maybe fell through the cracks. Maybe we'll find out. But yep, this morning they rested the case and rebuttal's being done. I'm not sure if it's over or not, but then they'll have the closing arguments tomorrow, because obviously they got to give them time to prep for a closing, which I believe they're going to give them 2.5 hours each, something like that, and then it's on to deliberations. So by this time tomorrow, trying to do the math here, approximately around this time tomorrow, deliberations. So pretty wild. Really, the defense only went for 2.5 days, maybe, I guess you could say 3. So, I mean, they really could have had a speedy trial, considering, this didn't go that long. But, obviously they couldn't use their Odin theory. That would have, we'd probably been here till Christmas if they were doing that, calling witnesses left and right. But that isn't the case. So here we are. We got a lot to go over. First off, I just want to shout out to my wonderful mods. Thank you guys so much for all you guys do coming in and modding. I get messages here. Make sure everything's good here. Okay. Awesome. Let me know, mods, if you need me to crank up or slow down the speed, but we will get right into it. And I did make a video, so what we'll do, usually I recap the day before first, but I think maybe we'll just get into today first and then recap, because I built a new added on to my timeline that I've had, built a long time ago, and I've added things on, things that we have obviously learned through the trial. And there's some interesting things that I definitely want to point out. So let's, what I'll do is I'll play a quick recap of the highlights of yesterday, a 3-minute video. Let's do that to at least just kind of get up to speed from what happened yesterday, because usually my lives, we don't quite have all the information from the day before. We usually miss out on a witness or two. So give me 1 second here, guys, as I fix this. One of the things that the defense, I think, tried to end on with the bombshell is the phone, and that the headphones were apparently plugged in. But I have something that probably won't surprise some of you, or will. But we'll talk about that and how that, in my opinion, is a huge nothing burger. And honestly, it just makes it more complicated if you really think that these guys kidnapped these girls and plugged in some headphones for 5 hours or whatever, listen to iTunes, and then had the phone in a Faraday bag, or they're in a metal building, one of the two. I mean, I'm assuming you'd have to go from Faraday bag to a metal building, one of the two. So I don't know if this is Odinus or Ocean's 11. I mean, it's starting to get a little ridiculous in my opinion. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's just play the highlights. So let me get into it. Let's leave off with Eldridge. That's where we left off yesterday, because I had to leave. And I'll talk about, when I get some time, I'll talk about, I had to run out of here yesterday. Although we were usually going over our time limit. But So just to recap, yesterday they had a couple of experts. I think the big bombshell was this Eldridge, who looked into Libby's phone, obviously expert for the defense. And obviously they dropped a bombshell saying that they, when they used this Knowledge C database, it's the same kind of thing that they used in the Alex Murdaugh trial. They can tell different things, just as simple as if you were to literally just touch your phone, that makes a command, an input. And so they can see that. They knew that Libby, right after she filmed the bridge guy, she sadly tried to unlock her phone, but it didn't go through, which is really tragic because, who knows what, if she was able to call 911. It's truly tragic. Let's see here. Okay, let's get going. So I'm just going to play this Eldridge guy here, recap that, and then we'll get into today, and then we'll go over highlights. This is former FBI forensic examiner Stacey Eldridge. Eldridge now works as a private detective in Nebraska, specializing in digital forensics. Eldridge said she spent 65 hours going over digital information, and then spent 15 hours preparing her testimony. Eldridge examined the data extracted from Libby's cell phone. She had access to the full file extracted in October 2017, as well as reports and depositions on other data pulls. Eldridge said she was looking into stuff the user cannot touch or control. Eldridge said you need special forensic software to get through the data. Eldridge said she used a program called Celebrite and another called Axiom. Eldridge explained that after extracting the data from a phone, you should make a copy for examination. Otherwise, you change the phone itself. So I think that's something that she pointed out, and because I think every time you do that, you may overwrite data every time you go into the phone. And I think at that time in 2017, they didn't know that. So I think she's pointing that out. Software allows different types and levels of data to be extracted. Eldridge said the best practice is to get full file systems first. Eldridge said in 2017, Indiana State Police did a basic user extraction at first, but could have pulled more. Eldridge said in October 2017, ISP came back to do a full extraction. Eldridge said that did cause issues, because files dropped off as the phone got older. Eldridge said she was able to pull information from the health app on Libby's phone and the Knowledge C database. Defense attorney Jennifer Auger pulled some of the data that Eldridge extracted on a TV screen.
Okay, there we go.
The display showed where Eldridge's data agreed with the analysis by state's witness Chris Cecil, who works for Indiana State Police. Eldridge said her data disagrees with Cecil's timeline for when messages, calls, and voicemails were delivered the night of February 13 into the morning of February 14 in 2017.
Yeah, not to interrupt this, but don't forget, and we'll of course talk about it, but I just can't help myself. Remember the defense said that they were going to, I'm not sure how they worded exactly, but they said that they were going to show that that he left at 2:15 or 2:17. I'm not sure either one. It's, in that time frame. This was in the opening statements by the defense that they were going to prove Richard Allen left before the murders. But I guess they forgot that. That I think that would be like one of your most important things, because they have not proved anything about Allen's whereabouts that day at all. Period. Absolutely nothing. They've argued, was he sane, or his as far as the confessions. I think they put up a fair argument in that, but nothing as far as witnesses there. And they even, of course, we'll see the witnesses that were brought in today. I mean, some of them were there to argue that basically, just to remind the jury that there was nobody on the trails, because, basically if he was there from noon to 1:30, he didn't run into the same four juveniles. He ran into a different group of girls. Yet Nobody else saw these girls except Alan. Yet they looked like the same girls. One had black hair and one were sisters. He even says they looked like they were babysitting and they were sisters. And that's all true with the actual 4 juveniles. Coincidence?
According to Eldridge, Libby's phone lost contact with a cell phone tower at 5:45 p.m. on February 13, 2017.
Yeah, maybe she
and
didn't
then
know that,
reconnected at
Crowley.
4:33 a.m. on February 14, 2017. Over objections by the state, information about pings to Libby's cell phone is shared with jurors. According to the health data app on Libby's phone, Eldridge says it continued to log that it was gathering data, meaning the phone was on. Eldridge said there would have to be an external reason for the phone to be on, but not connected to a tower. In Cecil's report, the data said that at 5:45 p.m. on February 13, 2017, there was an audio output start time. Cecil noted, research is incomplete, saying that could mean headphones, a speaker, a microphone, a Bluetooth device, etc.
Yeah, because also she did have an iPad as well. Obviously not there at the bridge. I'm assuming at home. Now I don't think it could be. I'm not a Apple guy, so I mean I understand that the concepts and everything, but I don't know if the distances, if it if you were to plug in headphones. But anyway, irregardless, there's a pretty simple explanation for this audio input. And I'll show you guys. It's literally one of the most common issues. I had it, well, not in the same regards, but more or less the same thing.
Now, in 2024, this research is complete, Eldridge said. Eldridge said the facts were in the Knowledge C database the entire time. February 13 at 1:38 p.m. Several audio outputs. February 13 at 5:45 p.m. A recording is started February 13 at 10:32 p.m. The recording ends. Eldridge said,
So really what she's saying is at 5:45 there's a head jack or something plugged into the head jack. Or it's it's input. And then it's at 10:32 p.m. Approximately 5 hours later, just a little less, it's unplugged. So
at 10:32
obviously,
p.m., the device logged a
people went
1,
nuts,
which means a headphone was inserted. Eldridge confirmed it was wired headphones. Eldridge said this means the headphones were inserted at 5:45 p.m. and then removed at 10:32 p.m. Eldridge clarified it could have been...
That's a pretty bold statement to confirm they're wired headphones. But
wired headphones or an AW cable. Eldridge said the headphones would stop
could have
sound
been
coming
wired
from the phone.
Something else.
Eldridge said Libby's phone received a call milliseconds before the headphones were inserted. State's attorney Nick McClelland began cross-examination.
Bing.
McClelland and Eldridge established that she received her training while at the FBI. Eldridge was only given the rough location where the phone was found. Eldridge was not given time to review all of the information. Eldridge focused on the health app data, focusing on when the phone lost power at 4:33 a.m. on February 14 and worked backwards to 10:50 a.m. on February 13.
I don't know why it goes crazy. Again, this is AI. I don't know why it adds, it's just Feb. I don't know why it doesn't just say Feb. Sometimes it says Febby or
teen. Eldridge reviewed the video on the phone and agreed with the timestamp and location that state police found. Eldridge agreed that the health app did not log any movement after 2:32 p.m. on February 13.
And that's huge. So she had a health app, which obviously was logging footsteps. Alex Murdaugh case is a great example of, how they're able to determine that Alex Murdaugh, shortly after he killed his wife, that the two phones were actually traveling together. And then, he tossed her phone eventually out the window and noticed, they were able to log all this stuff. It was pretty amazing. And anyway, this is the same thing, basically. But yeah, 2:32, the phone stops moving. They were able to tell, elevation, when it goes down in elevation or whatever. depending on the elevation. It tells you how many stories or something like that. I forget exactly. But anyway, they say the phone does not move after 2:32. So now they say that, the phone can be in a vehicle and it won't record steps. But still, if you kidnap these girls and then you're going to have to bring them back and go down the hill, then you're going to be walking again. So how is that phone not recording those steps?
Eldridge said there was no information that the phone was powered off overnight. It was in and out of service before 5:45 p.m.
And then she didn't really know the scene that well, so she didn't really. This is something that McClelland was basically arguing about, is that she didn't really know that area. She didn't study it, so she's not really familiar with the towers and how the cell service is spotty. And that was the likely cause of why the cell phone was not, really synced anywhere to the tower. Of course, the defense wants to make people think that they had the killers had it in like a Faraday bag, or they were it'd have to go from a Faraday bag to a metal building, or just kept in a Faraday bag the entire time until they released it again. And then while listening to iTunes, which that I'm still trying to understand. If you're going to plug, what's the point of plugging in headphones if you got it in a Faraday bag or whatever? Again, makes my head hurt just trying to think about it.
2017. McClelland asked if Eldridge knew about the cell service at the scene on Feb. 13. Eldridge said,
"That's a good question,
no."
Frompel.
McClelland asked about a signal blocker. Eldridge said a person would need to have...
I think if they did know that, I would say that the only argument still, maybe they did know that and they just don't want to... would you want to really confuse the jury and bring that up if it's irrelevant to your case? But again, maybe getting ahead of it and mentioning that, there's these inputs in here. But I don't know if that would have just confused. I don't know.
With them. During redirect, defense attorney Jennifer Auger asked if Eldridge had analyzed all of the data she should have. Eldridge said she analyzed all that she could with the hours she had. Auger asked what a drive study is. Eldridge said it is when you drive around to test cell service. Eldridge said it was covered in a 2019 document. Auger asked if you would need to move a phone to plug in headphones.
I would think you
Eldridge
would need
said
to, right?
You wouldn't necessarily need to move the phone enough to log a step in the health app. Auger asked if the phone would log a step if it was...
But still, if you're going to carry these kids, or, you're going to have to go down a hill, you can't take the vehicle down to the crime scene. So you're going to log steps. I don't know how you'd be able to do that.
After 4:33 a.m. Eldridge said, no. The state asked if the phone would log information while being carried. Eldridge said it would depend. At 3:09 p.m., prosecutor Nick McClelland starts cross-examination. He asks,
all right, so I'm going to skip this forward. So I just added some more in here from the other blog. And so let's get into what could cause that. Here, the jury asks, did you write your own timeline? She said, no, not enough time. Could this be related to Libby's iPad? It says they were not synced. Here's the great question, and this is, would water impact movement? Now, they had a great question, but I don't know if... I don't know if they even worded that right, because that doesn't even make sense. Would water impact movement? But it is a great question. She said no, the water would not impact the port, which I'm just going to say is bullshit. Clearly this is not an expert that's kind of lost her touch. Obviously she doesn't do this anymore. Anyway, let's see about that answer, though, where Eldridge says no, the water would not impact the port. And let's see. 1.3 million views. iPhone 6, 6S. That's the one Libby had. How to unstuck. That's how to, and then it says stuck in headphone mode. Water damage.
Recently noticed that your speaker stopped working on your iPhone. If this happens to you, it may not just be the speaker. What might be the problem is that your phone is actually in headphone mode. Your headphone jack is telling your phone that you have headphones in when you really don't. Now, why is this happening? Because there are pins inside the headphone jack that could get stuck for numerous reasons. You could have lint in there, or you may have recently gotten your phone in water. That's a pretty common cause, and that corrodes.
No way. That's a common cause. Oh my God. There's so many videos on this. I mean, and of course, and they want to blame Cecil for looking up Google. You can't blame him. I mean, all you have to do is just Google stuck in headphone mode. Gee, you've got tons of videos. It's a common issue. And water does. It creates, and it can, what probably happened, they either crossed and it was in her pants and it got wet. Or somehow there's some moisture at some point that got into it and eventually got into the port and then either kind of corroded or caused the pins to connect. And then it's in headphone mode. And then eventually it dried probably after 5 hours. And then those pins were unstuck. And voila. Headphone mode. Common issue.
Pins, and the pins get stuck once they get corroded. So what you'll want to do is what I do in this follow-up video with a Q-tip. If for some reason the Q-tip trick doesn't work that you'll see coming up here, try restarting your phone. And in order to do that, you just hold down the home button and the power button up at the top. Hold them down simultaneously.
And of course, the other most common issue is getting dirt, lint. People, put them in their pockets and lint will kind of get down in there. So the same concept with dirt could be it. But I think between the two, dirt, water makes the most sense. It was probably in there. It either eroded it or whatever, caused the pins to, have a connection because water obviously is a conductor. That's most likely what happened. And then it dried out after 5 hours and boop, went back out. Unless you want to think the killers were listening to Libby's iTunes playlist, then that's on you. Makes for a good YouTube video, I'm sure.
To the north in Delphi. Turning to other news now
loud,
on this election day. To the north in Delphi, the Delphi murders trial. Multiple people taking to the witness stand today.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Digital forensic examiner
That's a
who
good
shared
question.
brand new information in court this.
Sorry. That's a really good question. Will they televise the verdict? Probably not. Man, at the very least, I would love to see if it was guilty. Oh, what I would pay to see the reaction on his face and the faces for the family. Oh my God. I don't know which one, probably the family, because, they've been waiting much longer than, poor Alan's been suffering in jail or prison, whatever. June, good to see you looking handsome today. Justice for Abby and Libby. That's what it's all about. Long before Richard Allen came in. Long before Richard Allen, he had 5.5 years to live his life, quote unquote, after he took these lives of these two beautiful children. Anyway, thank you, June. Thank you, guys. And if you can, please hit that like button. We'll get play this 3-minute video here. We'll get into what's going on today, and then I've got a video that I've made of all the highlights from prosecution and the timeline, and some interesting things that I've added in on the timeline.
This afternoon.
Samantha Johnson is heading up our coverage live in Delphi tonight. And Sam, I know it's been a long day for you.
Jacqueline.
You've been in the courtroom all day today. Let's start with this new digital information that came out today.
Yeah, and Ann and Felicia, this is the most new information too I can give you. It comes from a former FBI forensic examiner. Her name is Stacey Eldridge. She was on the stand today for almost 2 hours inside the courtroom. She says she reviewed digital data pulled by Indiana State Police from Libby German's phone around the time the girls went missing. But this examiner says she went digging and she did her own data too, and she found even more information. So she says using the same data state police had access to years ago, she discovered someone inserted a headphone jack into Libby's phone at 5:45 p.m. on February 13th. That headphone jack was then removed at 10:32 that same night. And Eldridge says just milliseconds before the headphone was inserted, Libby's phone was ringing. So what's the big deal here? We know Libby's phone reportedly stopped tracking movement around 2:32 on the 13th. And we've known the phone was not responding to cell towers from 5:45 on the 13th until the early morning hours on the 14th. But this information about the headphones is the first time we've ever heard about someone else.
And it might have even been water damage gotten into the circuits and kind of made, again, this is clearly out of my expertise, but I just wonder if maybe the water damage, obviously there was a body on top of the cell phone. The cell phone area in general is spotty as it is, so,
else possibly interacting with Libby's phone. Now, the defense went on to say if the phone was stationary, if it was at the crime scene this whole time, why would it disconnect from cell service for hours and then suddenly reconnect at 4:33 in the morning the next day? Well, Eldridge said she found no digital evidence of what could have gone wrong, and she suggested something external happened. She said either the phone was moved or the signal was blocked. Now, today inside the courtroom, the Carroll County prosecutor, Nicholas McLeland, he pushed back a little bit. He said, had you ever been to the crime scene? Do you know what the cell service was like the day that we are talking about this day?
Yeah, I think that would be very important to know the cell service of the area if you're going to be brought in. I think that would be like the biggest thing, especially if you're going to be talking about cell service, being in or out. I think that'd be pretty big.
Data, February 13th, 2017, alluding to the fact that they likely had poor cell service, and maybe it's more feasible that the phone just lost service for all of those hours too. Anne-Marie and Felicia, one of the most important topics that came out of today's testimony from Alan's
Boom,
attorneys.
water damage. Yeah.
So that's really interesting because it seems like you'd have to have some expertise to block the signal from a phone, wouldn't you, Sam?
Right. So killers are walking around with Faraday bags. Again, are these Odinus or Ocean's 11? I mean, just, again, out of the realm of reality into fiction. And
yeah, and she was asked about that too. The prosecutor asked, well, wouldn't someone have to have some kind of device or some kind of tool with them to help block that? And she said, yeah, they likely would. So there was a little bit of pushback.
I mean, if anybody doesn't know what a Faraday bag is, it's kind of something that can block cell service. It's a bag. I could type it up. I don't know if you can get them. But yeah, we'll look those up in a bit. But yeah.
Back in some of her testimony earlier today. It's also,
you may have heard of a Faraday cage. That's kind of common, especially in certain movies.
So important to mention that was just one of the witnesses the defense called today. We also heard from a psychiatrist who specializes in solitary confinement, memory, and false confessions. And then we heard from a forensic scientist who works in firearm and crime scene reconstruction, a few of the very key issues that have been brought up time and time again.
That's a good question, Zach. If there was light water damage, let's say just like a little bit where it dried up, I don't know if they would be able to tell that, or if they were looking for that, if it wasn't like blatantly obvious when they had recovered the phone. And I would think even overnight, depending on condensation, I don't know how that would work, leaving a phone out at that time of year, what effects that would have on the phone as well. And those kind of temperatures, because obviously it's February, even though it was a nice warm day, what would that do to the phone, with that kind of temperature? So many variables.
We'll break down what else we've learned coming up tonight at 6.
All right, our coverage continues throughout the news tonight. Sam, thanks so much for joining us live from Delphi at this hour.
Okay, a big day of testimony for the defense there. We are going to have more on what happened today in our Delphi debrief.
Yeah, it's literally, not to keep re-harping on the phone, but, you know, because, of course, they were going nuts, you know. For those who are here live, you know, before I got off, that was kind of what we left off on, you know. And, you know, they're going nuts. Oh, my gosh, somebody's, you know, plugged in wired headphones. And then, of course, all you have to do is just, I mean, it is literally one of the most common things. Headphone, you know, headphone jack or headphone mode, whatever, stuck in headphone mode. You just type that in, iPhone, whatever. It doesn't matter, Android or, you know, Apple. Yeah. Common issue.
Weeknights at 10 p.m. on WTHR.
Millions of views.
She walks there often. She said on February the 13th. That
okay, so one thing I just want to clear up, and we'll get into today. I did say that the defense lied yesterday about the Betsy Blair and the Mercury comet. I have to say, you know, because I do admit when I'm wrong. I'm not perfect. I get things wrong. Even though they have lied a lot or taken things way out of context. It just unfortunately nobody reported in the interview that they had with Betsy Blair yesterday that, because I thought the main thing they'd be like, hey, you know, what about this Mercury comet? But what she said in her original report, or one of them, she was actually interviewed several times because obviously, you know, she went there multiple times that day. And, of course, ran into Bridge Guy and saw this vehicle. So what she'd said is she saw a car that she believed was backed in at the CPS building. And it had sharper angles. And it reminded her of a car that her father had, which was a 1965 Mercury Comet. So, but they didn't report that in the blogs. So, you know, I was like, because I thought for sure. And they just left that out or something, I guess. So I admit I'm wrong on that, but still they called Leggett a liar, even though, you know, in the PC affidavit, they never say Betsy Blair saw anything except for a car backed up. They never specify anything. So again, I think it's kind of twofold, but again, I messed up. They actually told the truth there.
The trail and was there for an extended amount of time. She likes to do 3 loops is what she had said. So she did 2 loops.
Yeah,
they
didn't have one. Yeah,
and then returned to the trail.
Yeah, they didn't have waterproof.
It was then that she walked towards High Bridge, and when she got towards High Bridge, she has testified that she saw a man standing on the.
Okay, so let's get into today, and then we'll come back around to this. But I think it's very interesting because it's possible the car that she saw was the one that. Heath saw, which was the guy that was working in that area in the morning to afternoon, and he saw a car, but it wasn't parked at the CPS building. It was kind of parked on the street, feet away. I forget exactly how it was worded, but yeah, it wasn't parked at the CPS building, but it was parked off the road a bit on the country road north. We'll point that out. And he said that looked like an older vehicle. So is it likely that she saw that vehicle? Or could it be that she saw that vehicle and she saw a vehicle that was backed in, but then just kind of combined the two? You know, that's certainly possible because it's interesting that she says this car was backed up, just like how Richard Allen's allegedly was.
And most people just pull in and heard before. And Blame Line was back. I think Diener was getting at, or what Stacey Diener was getting at, is did you maybe see that car on the road and not at the CPS building? But we never really got a concrete answer on that.
Okay. All right. So let's get into today. Take a sip here. Gail Hurd, huge supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for giving a Mob Crew membership. And to you, Gail, and to all the people of OGs. As you guys know, and some may not, not only do I cover true crime, but we do go out and search for the missing. Now, I usually do that during spring and summer times and fall. And Now it actually snowed a bit yesterday. Anyway, we searched for Aiden Clune over the summer, and we actually found the first evidence in 2 years, which was his shoes. Anyway, not to get too off topic, but anyway, after finding his shoes, we thought for sure we would find remains, but the shoes were huge because that's the first physical evidence anyone's ever found of this missing kid for 2 years out in this mountain range in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, just a little update on that. They have been out there with cadaver dogs because that was something that we were hoping would happen, and that has happened. But we'll get in more with that with a members live this weekend. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. All right. So today, let's start out with this morning. State Prosecutor Nick McClellan requested a sidebar with Special Franco. Oh, oops. Let me back this up. Sorry, I'm jumping. Yeah, jumped up ahead here. So I'm assuming they must have had at least plans to have at least one or two more witnesses today, because I don't know why you just wouldn't say, we rest, as far as last night. Oh, maybe I missed that first one. Anyway, maybe we'll just go to the blog here. Start it off here.
Find the perfect vacation.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's go. Maybe I should stick with that video first because I don't see that one there. So he had requested a sidebar, and then basically the defense said that they have no more witnesses. They noted Richard Allen will not testify. I know if I was innocent, I would testify. But that, again, I get it. Same time that could be a double-edged sword. McClellan chimed in and said the state has no objection to instructions. So basically, Judge Gull was not ready for this because she didn't even have jury instructions ready. And so this took everybody by surprise. So let's listen to just a couple of reporters there about their thoughts about the defense resting this morning.
Soon as
okay, right there, and then we'll get into obviously today or what happened after the first break.
Good morning. A surprise here this morning at the Delphi murders trial. As soon as we got going this morning, Judge Gall said, "Mr. Rosie, you may call your next witness." And at that point, he said,
"Give me a minute,
Your Honor, the defense rests." So, at this point, the defense has no more witnesses. The state rested earlier, but they have made it clear they do want to bring a couple of more witnesses back to speak to the jury. Gotta tell you, the judge, the state, the jury, they were all caught by surprise.
I don't think that's good in my opinion, for the defense. Let me know what you think in the chat, but the jury, and then there's another reporter, I think I may have hers in here as well. But yeah, all of them said that everybody was stunned, including the jury. And I would be too, because, let me finish this.
By the state announcing first thing this morning, they rested their case. The judge said, we weren't expecting this, so she doesn't even have the jury instructions completely ready to go yet. That was something that was discussed with both sides after she asked the jury to leave the room. At this point, we are waiting for some of the state witnesses that they plan to recall to come back to the stand. We're in recess waiting for them to get back to the courthouse. Again, Prosecutor Nick McClellan, he had no idea that the defense planned.
So I wonder, anybody have any ideas on who you think they might have called? Because remember, there was rumors that Kathy was going to testify. I think she might have been, at the very least, they're going to bring up the Google searches, but maybe they thought maybe that might backfire on them. Again, what happened to character witnesses for Richard Allen? you would think in the opening statements they would have talked about Richard Allen, and at the very least brought in some character witnesses to talk about, what a great husband he was and father and, hard worker or, made ends meet, whatever. None of that. And then the other thing, in the defense's opening statement, they said that they would prove, or I'm not sure the exact quote, but they said that more or less that they were going to show that Richard Allen left by 2:15 or 2:17. If someone wants to let me know. I have both times. Either way, that he left around that time via a phone ping or something like that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No alibi. No witness to confirm that he's there from his new noon to 1:30 time frame. Nothing. I mean, forget all the stuff after he's arrested. I think they made some decent arguments about that. I mean, I think for defense, I mean, you work with what you got, but no witnesses to disprove or prove his new timeline. I think is not good at all.
And to rest this quickly, everyone caught by surprise, but we are nearing the end of this trial. We expect a few more witnesses this afternoon.
Oh yeah, just a note. I forgot to mention this the other day. Brad Weber said, "Hey, I'll even take a polygraph test." I don't know if I don't think that was mentioned in live blogs, but he did mention that. And we know that, they saw 2 interviews from Allen, October 13th, and then 13 days later, October 26th, the day he was arrested. Now, they were edited, obviously, or redacted, but they believe in one of them, or maybe both, that Allen was probably asked to take a polygraph. Now, I know polygraphs are not, admissible in court, but I would think if you were innocent, that was something you would take. So again, nothing to disprove what the prosecution thrown out, and you got a vehicle that matches Richard Allen's at 1:27, exactly when the killer would arrive. Nothing. I mean, nothing for the zilch, nothing, nada. To back up their claims that he was there from noon to 1:30. All right, let's get into after lunch. So let's get here. Let me make sure. We got 600 people in here. Thank you guys so much. I might just quickly slow this down just a tad more before I get reading along. And then after that, I have, again, once we get caught up, I have a video that I've been working on and adding things as we go. Hey, good to see you, Ruckus. Hope you're doing well. God bless. All right, let's get into it. Let's see. Okay, so 12:45. All right. Okay, so for anybody that's kind of missed out, so they started out this morning, defense. I'm assuming they must have had like at least, at the very least, one more witness, but for whatever reason decided not to call them. Who knows why that is. So that obviously shocked everybody. Obviously Goal has to prepare jury statements and stuff like that. Then Goal is going to allow closing arguments. That's going to be tomorrow, I'm assuming. And they each get 2.5 hours, which is pretty good. And then we are basically, by the time maybe tomorrow, they'll be deliberating. All right, so here's the first rebuttal witness, Brianne Wilbur. For anybody that doesn't know, this is one of the 4 juveniles there. This is a huge witness and a great witness to bring back, because all the defensors, people, pro-defense people, claim, one of the arguments is that, because remember, Alan originally first told him that he was there from 1:30 to 3:30, which is basically the exact timeline, except for the 3:30, it'd be more like 4:15 or something like that. But the 1:30 time frame is exact. You see his car at 1:27. He would have parked at the CPS building at 1:30, 1:28, 1:29, whatever, but more or less 1:30. And that's when the killer arrived. And the rest is history, and we'll go over that later. But then, before he gets arrested, he changes his timeline because, after 5.5 years, his memory gets better over time. I can't remember what I ate yesterday, but this guy can remember what he was doing 5.5 years ago much better than, Anyway, I digress. So one of the issues is that they claim that, because remember, he still said he ran into juveniles. Everything is basically the same as what he told Dan Doolin. He was there with the stock ticker, except he just moved conveniently moved his time frame just where he's leaving just before the killer. Well, actually, when the killer arrived, I don't think he realized that. And so I think that's why now they had to change the timeline a little bit. But anyway, basically their argument is that he ran into, because remember, he says 3 girls, but technically there was 4 juveniles there. And so they're basically trying to claim that, this was another set of girls. Even though he claims that one of them has black hair, which Riley Voorhees has black hair. 2 of them look like sisters, and were babysitting. Voorhees had her sister with her, younger sister. So it's 1-to-1 match, except -1. But anyway, but the defense people say, this is a different group of girls. Yet, where are they? I mean, I would think if you're the defense, you would want to find those 3 witnesses, right? That would be huge. But nope. So, sorry to drag this on, but I just want to reiterate why they bring back Brianne Wilbur here, because remember, they were there from noon to 1:30. The same timeline that Alan now is putting himself in. So technically, they should be just walking in tandem. So, state recalls Brianne Wilbur. Asked her about the photos she took on that day of the murders. Huge. 12:43. Wilbur said she arrived at the Freedom Bridge at 12:25 that day. Very specific time. Remember, I think they said in the PCA, I think they said 12:43. So they were there. That's actually even, Freedom Bridge, 12:25. Okay, I'm thinking Monon Bridge. Okay, so they got there at the Freedom Bridge at 12:25 that day. Walked from the Freedom Bridge to the Monon Bridge and did not see any other young girls, because remember, he saw 3 females. I just explained. So they got there around 12:25, and then they got to the Monon Bridge at 12:43. They take photos, so there's metadata. So we've got this locked-in time frame here. I might have to update my time frame because I don't know if we actually had like an exact time of when they were from Freedom Bridge to the Monon Bridge, so I may have to update that a little bit. But so anyway, they didn't see any other girls, but obviously just the bridge guy that they saw when they were coming back. On cross-exam, her memory was questioned, and Wilbur said police focused on the end of her walk. Because obviously they saw bridge guy as just before they left, and I will show that timeline here in a bit. But that's a huge witness, because, the people that believe in the defense's claims, they think that this is another group of girls, which, again, you would think you'd be able to at least find one of them, right? If you're going to frame somebody, why wouldn't you just frame Ron Logan? Why spend millions and millions of dollars. If you're just going to throw somebody under the bus, why not just throw Ron Logan? Why not throw Kagan Klein? No one would bat an eye if he was railroaded. This guy put himself there. I mean, wouldn't you have to like manufacture evidence and stuff like that? Makes no sense. I'm sorry, but I just have to address that. It's ridiculous. What usually that happens, you see that, like the Westfield 3, I don't know if you say framed or if they just rush to judgment, but that would make sense. Early on, they arrest somebody. They want to, get this over with. Why have all these people? They had so many people to choose from, persons of interest. And I guarantee you, no one would bat an eye if they threw Kagan Klein under this for this. Makes no sense. Millions and millions of dollars over 5.5 years. Or more, no sense. Then they bring in Brian Harshman. Harshman is the one that listened to Alan's confessions, 61 plus confessions. I don't even know if we heard them all. I know we heard quite a bit. And that's something I'm trying to put together. And that's something I'll try to have maybe tomorrow or Friday. So anyway, they call him back. McClellan contended that Alan was in the same type of one-person cell at Westfield Correctional Facility, Wabash Valley Correctional Facility, and Cass County. Because remember, they finally got him to Cass County. And he says his Cass County cell is a little bigger. Harshman said there was no opportunity for Alan to have more interaction with people in Cass County than in Westfield. Harshman said Alan loved communicating with neighbors in Westfield and cannot communicate with neighbors in Cass County. Oh no, is he complaining now he can't talk to people? And people are, complaining, oh, poor Richard Allen, in this solitary confinement, where they really are just trying to keep him alive because, people that are accused of, killing girls is not a good look, and you're targeted. McClellan asked if there had been any issues with Allen in Cass County. Harshman responded that Allen has made threats to the staff at Cass County. Oh, and then Rosie objected. Oh, we can't have, Allen looking like he's, a bad guy or anything. Yeah, again, alibi. Where's his alibi? If he had an alibi, the Odinists have an alibi. This guy doesn't have an alibi. Oh, gosh. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. I kind of saw that. Oh, jeez. And, it's terrible. Prayers for the mod, Jennifer. I want to explain what's going on. I don't think that's my... God, that's terrible. Georgie, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. God bless you. Appreciate the support. Oh, Maria, I'm sorry. I missed you earlier. Can you say why you think RA is guilty? Yeah, if you can give me a minute, once I get up to date, we'll go over the timeline. I can't just say one thing. I mean, he placed himself there. There's so many things that he said that line up with the witnesses that were there, that really Richard Allen is his worst own enemy. He can't help but tell truth. I mean, and there's so much of it, and then I'll show it in the timeline. There's no one to fault except for Allen. He put himself there. If he didn't tell on himself, they may have never solved this. To be quite honest. Yeah. Anyway, so next witness, Dr. John Martin. Seems like they had him on for quite a bit, so let me take a sip here. Psychiatrist who treated Richard Allen in prison. who is an inmate and a patient at Westville who got psychiatric services for Martin beginning on November 22nd. Remember, Allen was arrested on October 26th. So, just shortly a month after his arrest. He'd been working at the Department of Corrections since 2020. He has 45 years expertise. That's a lot. That's a lot under your belt. Okay, so he was working a 40-hour week and 20-hour week in Illinois. Man, this guy's hardcore. Dang. In November of 2022, a psychiatrist at Westville retired, and Martin took over once per week on Tuesdays. Martin said he met with Allen in November 2022. He was a contracted employee, not part of the Department of Corrections. After his meetings with Allen and other inmates, he returned to his office at a prison medical building to write notes in the computer system. Martin said Allen came to Westfield on Prozac, and he continued him on that because Allen was stable. Martin said the prison medical notes, staff notes, which dates Allen takes medicine and which day he refuses medicine. One exhibit presented was Martin's notes written about Allen showing his treatment. Another exhibit was medication logs and charters showing what medicines were prescribed. Rosie said there were lots of initials on the second exhibit from the other medical staff. Prosecutor responded that the jury will hear about who the other initials are from. So they hand over that evidence to Goal. State asked about Allen's safekeeper status and the difference between statuses. Martin said Allen was kept in a prison in solitary confinement to keep him safe. The state asked if Martin has experience in treating people in safekeeper status. Martin responded that he has only experience. Martin responded that he only has experience treating safekeepers in the general pop, not in solitary. Now remember, I think they had to keep him solitary because if he was in general pop, they might not be able to protect him, and who knows if he would still be here today. But anyway, moving on. Martin said there's an insinuation that solitary confinement means an inmate has done something wrong. Mr. Allen had not done anything wrong, and yet he was treated as if he had done something wrong. That was not right, Martin said. The state asked Martin if he has experience working with inmates in solitary confinement. He said yes. Martin said he had many meetings with the warden, medical staff, prison attorneys, and others in order to do what they could to make life a little more comfortable for Allen while he was in prison. We did what we could to see that he was safe. Martin said he saw Allen in his cell and sometimes out of his cell. Martin said Allen came out of his cell for recreation and make phone calls. Rosie asked if Martin would only meet with Allen between 13 and 18 times. He said yes. Martin then talked about November 8th, 2022, assessment of Allen. Martin said he asked Allen a few questions and did a mental exam. He was stable. Martin said, adding he did not see depression or anxiety despite his history. Then November 29th, everything seemed fine. January 24th, Martin said he saw Allen. He needed to sign a consent for medications. Martin said informed consent was important to him. Allen signed a consent form for Prozac. Martin said that since Allen was doing well in January, protocol would allow him to see Allen again in April. I might need to turn down my heat. It's going on real quick. Let me read this last paragraph, and I got to turn down my heat. April 13th. Remember, he starts confessing as early as really March. Even though there's one in November where he says, I effed up. And then I think there's one where he even says to his wife that, if I have to, I'll come forward and tell him everything. On April 13th, 2023, Martin said he met with the warden and looked into Alan's cell, where Alan was lying naked on a mattress, smeared with feces, and appeared to be eating it. Officers dressed him and took him into the shower stall and washed Alan down. He was given a new gown and taken to a room with Martin for assessment. Martin said his conclusion from that meeting was Alan was psychotic. Martin said he gave Alan an antipsychotic medicine to treat that. Martin was asked if Alan had a fair understanding of the situation. and made the decision in his best interest. Martin said Alan's insight was insufficient and judgment was impaired, so he decided to give him a drug despite Alan's inability to give consent for an antipsychotic. Martin said he called the regional director for Centurion to have an emergency meeting the next day. During that meeting, they met with 3 psychologists. All agreed Alan was psychotic. All right, let me take a sip. I'm going to kick down this heat real quick. 1 second, guys. Okay. Ooh. All right. A little hot in here. Okay. In what Martin described as Alan's height of psychosis, Martin said Alan got a low dose of the short-acting injectable called Haldol on April 15th. Okay, just looking here. Is that when they first gave him the first time? I'm kind of curious because before that, he's confessed multiple times, including on April 5th, where he told Walla that basically kind of the MO of why he was taking, why he did it, which was sexual in nature. It wasn't the most detailed one. That would come in May, or actually, no, that would be May or June. I gotta look at it. I think it's May. Okay, April 25th, Alan seemed psychotic, but Martin said he noticed improvement, such as not smearing feces, noting Martin as a doctor asking for his wife. Noticing Martin as a doctor asking for his wife, improved speech, and eating meals. Oh, wow. On May 2nd, Martin said Alan seemed improvement, noting Alan was coherent and denied hallucinations. There was no evidence I could see of psychosis, Martin said on May 2nd visit. Really? I'm just going to note why they, for those that don't know why May 2nd is very important to note, because on May 3rd is when he confesses fully to Walla, with the van, the sticks, the beers, very coherent, very detailed account of what happened on May 3rd. So for anybody that's wondering why that May 2nd is brought up, so according to him, the one who said that he was psychotic during certain times, letter says he got better in May. May 3rd would be his, basically his biggest confession, I would say, out of all the confessions that we know of. Okay, moving on. I've just got the dates here. I'm just kind of looking to see what kind of lines up here. May 8th. Martin said Alan did not show any signs or symptoms of psychosis, noting Alan was getting reasonable sleep, denied having hallucinations, and was eating most of his meals and was undergoing therapy. Oh, really? So, 2 days later, May 10th, he calls his wife, Kathy, and tells her, I did it. I did it, babe. Probably going to get the electric chair. So, remember, he's crazy, Allegedly, he's crazy and lost his, But it sounds like he was just kind of having, and then if you actually, there was a great interview by, what's her name? Lawyer Lee? Is it Lawyer Lee? On YouTube, who's been going there. She did an interview yesterday with a guy who spent time in solitary. I don't know what he did. He seems like a really nice guy. I forget his name, but he was a special guest on her show, halfway into her show. And he spoke about what you learn when you get there and what these inmates will do to get attention or certain things or just to be let out. They'll flood their cell like Alan did. That's something, and they get taught that by others that are around them. It's just kind of word of mouth when you get there. Certain things, if you want something, if you want to get out of your cell, just flood your cell. Oh my gosh, great interview. Yeah, Lawyer Lee. Yeah, I would definitely check that. If you want to know, this guy spent, I don't know how many years, but he did do some solitary. Not as much as Alan, but he said, oh yeah, even the feces stuff, as sick as it sounds, it is, you want something, you do crazy stuff, and you get it. It's pretty wild. Okay, moving on. I got something in my eye. So, I'm just, boy, I got the confessions here, so I can kind of keep up with this here. Okay, then we have Martin noted no evidence of psychosis on visits of May 23rd and May 30th. And there might have been some, I don't have them all here. So I might be missing some because I think that's interesting to note those 2 dates. Like I said, I don't think we heard all 61 confessions. I think we heard a good portion of them. June 11th, he would again claim he did it. He did it in a phone call. In a visit June 20th, Martin decided not to give Alan any additional Haldol injections, stopping the medication, which obviously would be more confessions. Yep. But I'm going to have to go and list all those because I want to make sure I have them. Oh, yeah, Jocelyn. Yeah. Jocelyn, I won't, she can share what she wants to share. But, yeah, if anybody knows stuff like this, I think Jocelyn has a pretty good idea. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, Jocelyn. I'm like, man, yeah, you probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on. I certainly don't. I just had a couple of speeding tickets. Anyway, in his closing, Martin testified that Alan said to me, oh, okay, so this is in a visit on June 20th. So let me start this over. I'm sorry. In a visit on June 20th, Martin decided not to give any additional Haldol injections, stopping the medication. In his closing, Martin testified that Alan said to me, I would like to apologize to the families. Martin said Alan was not under pressure and said it on his own free will. Imagine that. Martin noted the purpose of the Haldol injections was to get Alan back to reality. Remember, these injections are supposedly, anyway. During cross, defense attorney Brad Rosie had a sidebar with Goal. Doesn't look like, we don't know what's happened since then. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. No. Oh, my God. Oh, sorry, guys. Really? I hate these ads. Sorry about that. So court went to lunch at 12:30. Okay. Joanne says, I think the loss of his missing 20... Yeah, when he keeps his phones all the way back to Nokia days. And you would think, obviously, you were there. Let's just say if he was innocent, and you allegedly were there from noon to 1:30, which I'm gonna show here in just a minute is absolute BS. But if you were there between that time, and you just left before the killer arrived, you would think, man, I could be an important witness, from my phone. Probably keep my phone around just in case I may ever need it. I keep all the other ones. But no, that one's missing. You're going to kill me with another. Let me just see if there's anything else before we get to... here, we got some jury questions as well. I think that's a huge witness to bring in a guy that, says he's psychotic during certain times, but then other days, he's not. So let's see what the jury had. This will be huge. Did the oral Haldol, I hope I pronounced that right, continue after June 20th? He said yes. What time did you meet with Alan on June 20th? Early in the morning. Based on the video, could this presentation be consistent with faking? Martin says no. Based on the video, June 20th. Is it possible for Alan to slip in and out of psychosis in a 24-hour period? Martin says yes. At 2... Oh, wow. So the state rests. State rested at 2:15. No other rebuttal witnesses. You have now all heard the arguments in this case. The jury exits the courtroom at 2:16. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin. Let me see how many people I got in here. Oh, God. Oh, geez. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin revisits jury instructions, wanting to add a statement of confessions. The state objects. God, I just will not give this up. The defense withdraws the request. Baldwin again brings up an offer of proof involving a man named... I really hope, just my 2 cents, if it's possible, just to show that, this needs to be taken seriously, maybe some lawsuits need to come out with this, because again, it's all these people, not all, but, a lot of people that believe in, Alan's innocence say, well, how can you be talking about Alan's, it's innocent, until proven guilty? But then it's okay to be talking about Elvis Fields and Brad Holder and the Odinus. These guys, there's no connection to them to this crime at all. No nexus, which is the big thing, is to actually get them there. Alan admits he's there. None of these guys. Anyway, so, and again, Elvis Field, the guy who's got the mentality of a child. Or a teenager, whatever, outsmarted, ISB for, 5 years. Or 7 years, whatever. Who's connected to the defense, Odinism defense. State says this does not matter because the defense has rested. That's funny. Even after they rested, they're still won't give it up. Baldwin says he wants Fields' address because he did not respond to a subpoena. Oh, wow. Judge Gold says she already ruled he would not testify. Oh, yeah. So they're sending out subpoenas when... it's crazy. That is crazy. 12:25. So I got to remember that. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I don't know how it goes with the defense, but other people, again, I just, I don't know how all that works, but it just, again, the whole argument of, oh, Alan, you got to prove him, is innocent for proven guilty, but yet we'll throw these guys under the bus all day long. It just blows my mind. I know if we start really believing that Odinus killed these girls, then, what's next? Are we going to now see, women being, tortured, drowned, burned alive at the stake? Are we going to go back to, burning, drowning witches? Where's it going to stop? It's ludicrous. They can't prove one thing that Alan, not one thing for Alan that, says that he left. Nothing. There's nothing. No character witness. Nothing. So I need to update this. So they were there at 12:25. So I need to put this. I'd have to kind of change this up a little bit because we didn't really have a time. So I actually had them kind of more there about 12:15. So here's Richard Allen's new timeline, right? And how it's just, it doesn't work. But then I'll show you guys the updated timeline and some things that I've noted that I find very interesting that Allen stated, just little tidbits that we learned through the trial. Make it very interesting. But if anyone's wondering why, again, it's just impossible for Alan to be there from noon to 1:30. So I almost had it right. Obviously, they would have been back here a little bit. So obviously, Alan would have been, if he got there at noon, unless he sat in the car, he would actually be ahead of the girls. So really, you just flip these two. So he'd be ahead. So really just kind of put him ahead. He would have probably ran into Betsy Blair. Because remember, Betsy Blair's doing her 2 loops right now. And then it's going to leave and then come back. She's now on the 508. The girls will now get there at 12:43 or sometime around, maybe a little bit before. But they take a picture at 12:43. So they have metadata. And they're there for at least a good 17 minutes because they even, some may, I think, kind of walk down to the water, which is just a little path down here right by the trail. So no matter what, Alan would have ran into these girls at the bridge. It's just undeniable. He would have ran into these girls if he was there from noon to 1:30. And then there's something else. And this is where I want to show you guys the up-to-date timeline. Because after being on Platform 1... Oh, and what was another thing is... so when they had McCain, the guy, the historian, he said that... I think he was asked about, well, do you go up on the bridge? Can you, something about can you see fish? Would you go up there to look at the fish? And he thought that was, it's something like he thought that was ridiculous. Like, see fish? He had some kind of response like that. I don't know the exact quote, but I thought it was hilarious. It was clearly like he thought it was ridiculous to actually see fish. Because usually the Deer Creek is pretty, it's not clear. Oh, yeah. So one of the things, there's that big rumor, unless we're talking about something different. If you're talking about yesterday, I forgot to address that. So remember there was a rumor that one of the jurors supposedly outspoke and said, let him finish. That didn't happen. It was actually Luttrell, who was... the defense witness's expert witness was on, and Luttrell was doing cross, and he wanted to get a yes and no answer out of him, but he kept trying to drag out this question that was supposed to be a yes or no. And obviously, he doesn't want, he just wants the yes or no. For those that watch court, you know how that goes. So he kept stopping him, like, no, just yes or no question. And it was actually Rosie that said, let him finish. So, and then a certain YouTuber who I think just probably mistakenly, thought it was the jury, but one of the jurors, but it was actually Bradley. Call Me Kitty says, YouTubers have been to the bridge and you can definitely see fish. Again, I've never been there. I'm sure it's possible. I know it's, a creek, but I'm just relaying that, McCain was asked that, and I know he had some kind of response. Like, to him, it sounded kind of ludicrous. Again, I don't know the exact quote, but I'm sure. I mean, usually a lot of times you see it dirty, but yeah, I'm assuming if it was clear, yeah. So Alan, in his thing, he said that after, in his new timeline, and when he was walking back, that he actually sat on this bench, and that he saw an SUV and a sedan. Well, obviously for all this to happen, it just wouldn't, because he would have to run into these girls. Again, it's just impossible. This timeline you cannot make it work. And there's no another group of girls. These girls even confirmed
could
that.
Have been the suspect.
And then, of course, Richard Allen would be leaving when the killer would arrive. And you would expect him to have ran into the bridge guy. Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Right. Yeah, it is February. Yeah. Not to say there wouldn't be fish in there. Yeah, but they would have a slower metabolism. I don't know. But yeah.
This is 4 juvenile
Oh, no worries,
who
Amy.
arrived at the trails.
It was mentioned by multiple people. That's what happens when you have a case where it's not televised, there's no transcript, and the acoustics in the courtroom are bad. And yeah, it's happened. I misreported. It's happened almost every day where there's some kind of obviously the day before it was Libby's daughter, or Richard's daughter, misquoted. So it happens. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about the wintertime in fish. Yes, Jumpsuit Pablo. Oh, yeah, really good one. Oh, that's why he was big during Murdoch. Okay, that's where that's crazy. Yeah, very interesting for those that don't kind of understand. Again, I don't either. Are not familiar with, how the inside, works and stuff. But he thought with the stuff that Alan did, he said most of it is just stuff that is taught to them to get, something. He didn't think that was unusual. And as Jocelyn said, it's not new to her at all. Yeah. Okay, let's go over the timeline. I can't believe we are done. So we'll just go over the timeline. I'm just going to add a few things in. Won't take long, but I wanted to show you guys some interesting things. So
this is 4 juvenile witnesses who arrived at the trails sometime before noon that day. They would walk to the bridge, then turn around and begin to walk back. They would run into somebody who they believe could have been the suspect.
Emma says you can use this event. Okay. Again, I know they asked McCain that. It was on Murder Sheet, and he had some kind of weird response. Maybe he misunderstood the question. I kind of got it as he thought it was kind of sounded dumb, but maybe we don't have a transcript. We don't have it televised, so I could be wrong. I just know I've seen it, you know, a lot of times where it's like muddy and it's like, you know, how can you see anything up there? But anyway, continuing on. But thank you, Primala, for clearing that up. 127.
This is the road the killer likely took just before parking at an abandoned building.
That's the Mears
known as
entrance.
The CPS building.
And this is added with all the new stuff that we've learned. And there's a few things I want to point out. So obviously, this would be the road. This is Country Road. And this is where the camera would have captured Richard Allen's.
There is a working camera on this building here.
Unique.
According to the PCA,
2016.
It shows a black Ford Focus passing by at 1:27 p.m. Allegedly, this would be Richard Allen.
You know, with a specific black vehicle hatchback with rims. I mean, clearly the video evidence is clear enough that they can see the rims. Obviously, I don't think they can make out a license plate because of how far the vehicle is, and there's no curve to the road. So, but there's some very interesting things that point out. So this is the road where I think there could have been a secondary vehicle somewhere along here that was an older model sedan.
The killer parked his car.
Remember, there's Brad Heath, who was working at the Andersons or whatever, somewhere out here, and saw a vehicle parked off the road, not at CPS, but off the road in the morning. And then he noticed it in the afternoon.
In an unusual manner, which would catch the attention of other witnesses.
So it's possible that there could have been a car parked there at some point, and they both saw the same vehicle, Betsy Blair and Heath. And then maybe she also saw a vehicle at CPS, but maybe just combined the two. But this would be the time of the killer arriving. All the points line up. This is why it's so damning for Allen, because he's his worst own enemy. Monday we went over that. It's one of the most common issues. Water. It is literally. I just played the video. I would play it, but it is literally one of the most common issues. That water gets in it, and it causes the pins in the headphone jack to connect, because water is a conductor. And then it probably dried up after 5 hours and knocked it back out of headphone mode. And if you just Google it, you'll find hundreds of videos that have millions of views, because it's one of the most common issues that happen is phones getting stuck in headphone mode because either they got lint, dirt, or water. I think that was just a complete mistake. I think that was just, maybe they were going through tips and, saw this guy come forward, like, okay, we got this guy cleared, whatever, moved on. Who knows? I don't think we'll ever get that question or get that answer. Although it's a good question. I think it's a very good question. But again, defense, no alibi, again, claimed in their opening defense that they were going to prove that he left by 2:15. I guess they forgot about that. I mean, I think that'd be kind of important for your case if you were going to, accused of murdering two girls. Not one witness to confirm, deny, whatever about what Richard Allen did that day at all. Like in the morning, afternoon. What about the next day? What about his wife saying, like, how was his demeanor? Nothing. Like, Don't you think, like, if he was innocent, you'd bring up his wife and say, like, maybe she couldn't remember that day because she was at work, but, like, well, what was he like for February? Can you at least remember, did anything change? Did all of a sudden his depression get worse? Was he acting, like spooked, whatever, changing his, demeanor. I mean, I would think if for an innocent person, if he didn't have anything to do with it, it would just be like, February is just another month, it's a little cold. But yeah, nothing.
These
no
four
character
witnesses,
witness,
which included 2 sisters.
But there's interviews for Richard Allen's former, who's worked with Richard Allen, and they're not good. Not good.
Would pass. Somebody near the Freedom Bridge entrance. Coincidentally enough, Allen's
I'm sure
original
they got
timeline
that.
he gave to Dan Doolin
I did post
lines up
that,
almost
the water
perfectly
damage.
for when the 4 witnesses and Allen would cross paths. Allen would even claim he ran into multiple females when arriving to the Freedom Bridge.
So this is coming up is really big that I want to add in, because I think Allen, he can't help but tell the truth. I think, again, he's his worst own enemy. So the killer would have passed these girls around 1:38, somewhere around in there. They were just about done to leave, right? There was technically 4 of them. Sometimes they say 3, but there was actually 4 of them there, but only 3 are brought up in the PCA. We have Brianna, Riley, her sister, Anna Spath. Yeah, the 2 Voorhees sisters, Brianna and Anna Spath. And they pass him at the Freedom Bridge. And what do you know? Original statement by Allen says he saw 3 females. One was taller. One had brown or black hair. Riley has black hair. And not in this one, but in his interview with Holman, I think, Holman or Mullen, one of the 2, he says he also thinks that, it looked like they were sisters. One of them, were sisters, and they were babysitting. And all that is true, more or less. So, again, I think he just can't help but tell the truth, and he's his worst own enemy. He really is. And I really wish we could hear from the younger sister, but, of course the defense argues that, well, none of these witnesses could point to Richard Allen and say, that's the guy. Well, how could you, under oath, identify somebody who you can only see this much when he's covered up? It's even though it's wintertime, it's like 50s, whatever. It's very unusually warm, but this guy's dressed, and Allen said he had, layers on. And yeah, how would you be able to end it? They would not be able to. In reality, for those that are defenses, if you really think that they're going to find Richard Allen guilt or innocent, and that they're going to find the real killers, and that these witnesses are going to be able to go, oh, that's actually the killer. There's no way. That's Bridge Guy. There's no way, because how could you? When you see this guy passing. Oh, McLeland specifically asked defense phone expert if she could trace Richard Allen's movements using phone data without his phone. She said yes. The defense doesn't want jury to know Richard Allen's location. Of course not. It wouldn't look good. Okay, so moving on. This is where I think Richard also... so here's just some of the other sketches. Okay. And then one of the younger sisters, all the way back in the day, said, man, this guy looked like Jimmy Duvall. And God, look at Look at the similarities. I mean, that is crazy. So anyway, we move on. Obviously, now I'm just going to say it. Richard Allen then moves on. And this is where, so in his interview on October 13th, I think it's that one. It might have been the 26th, one of the two interviews. He says, with his new timeline, that after he comes back from the Monon Bridge, he sits at the bench at the Mears parking lot, that overlooks at the Mears parking lot, and says he sees an SUV and a sedan. I think he was telling half-truths right here. I think what happened is he actually ran into, and actually, I kind of had him a little bit ahead
to have seen an SUV.
Betsy Blair, but it is likely he probably was waiting for someone to arrive since those girls were leaving. He probably was kind of keeping an eye on them, kind of going a little bit slower once he passed them. Probably kept an eye on them, noticed that they're leaving. Walked to this intersection, probably waited for a bit, and then saw Betsy Blair arrive. And that's where he, says, yeah, I saw an SUV and a sedan.
When returning from the High Bridge, but was telling part truth. As Blair has a SUV she drives.
And yeah, for those that don't know, Betsy Blair drives an SUV. So I think, I kind of had him a little bit ahead, but I think he was probably waiting there. Because obviously he was there for a purpose. And he hadn't seen a target yet.
Betsy Blair would arrive to the Mears parking lot.
And obviously I don't think he's going to sit there as this lady comes. So I think, and maybe he didn't even know who Betsy was, and maybe he thought maybe this was going to be his target. So he wanted to go up and check ahead at the Monon Bridge because he knows that bridge is the dead end. So now he's going to go scout up ahead.
At 1:47 p.m. She will be an important witness to this case in all aspects, as she allegedly ran into the suspect while going for a walk to the bridge.
And that's the bench right there. That's the bench that Alan said at some point he was sitting, of course, in his interview with the new updated timeline. That's the bench right there. And so as you can see, we are coming from the Mears entrance. And so you can see how that bench kind of overlooks. I think that's the bench he's talking about. Although that bench looks like it's facing the other way, so I don't know if he was sitting on the bench. I think he said he was sitting on the bench. But he said he saw the car, SUV, and the sedan.
Shortly later, Kelsey German would arrive at the same Mears parking lot. She would drop off the two victims, Libby and Abby. So now you have the alleged suspect, Alan at the bridge, standing on platform 1, Betsy, who is walking on the trails up to the bridge, and the two victims approaching the trails.
Of course, Betsy sees him from, well over 50 yards. She does wear contacts. She was asked that, I think, yesterday. And she did admit that she could have mistaken his brown poofy hair if he was wearing, it could have been a beanie. And if Alan is short, she probably thought, what the shorter guy. Maybe he's younger, or maybe not even that, because again, he's got many layers on. Typically people that are on this trail or on the bridge, are teens, because it's kind of a teen hangout. And she's obviously someone that goes there a lot, so she probably just thought he was younger. But then in her deposit, or obviously in court, she said it could have been an older, an older person. not older person, but, not just 20s and 30s. And of course,
After
Richard
seeing the
Allen says the
suspect,
same thing,
Betsy would-
that he's on the first platform. So, go figure. There's 6 platforms.
Then turn around and start heading back to her car. She would also pass the 2 victims, Abby and Libby. From here, it's believed the suspect did the same thing and would too pass the 2 victims. It's believed that this is when the suspect saw an opportunity, as he knew that no one else was on the bridge and no one behind him. For those that are not familiar with this case, should know that at the end of the bridge is private property, and you would need to turn around. Sadly, some of the girl's final moments would be captured on Libby's iPhone as she began recording at 2:13 p.m. This was probably due to the fact this guy was approaching at fast pace.
So I did a recreation. I know somebody else has done it much better than I.
Allegedly, a new rumor has it.
So this is kind of what was in the video. I don't know if this is the updated one or not, but this is kind of what was in the video.
Allegedly, a new rumor has it.
See, this is the path. There's no path down here. We've got to go down here.
He's got a gun.
And it's actually Libby saying, that be a gun. And okay, so this isn't the updated one, but, and Abby actually says, is he still behind me?
This is freaking me out.
And it appears that she recorded him, so she must turn the phone at some point upside down. So he's actually recorded upside down. And then you hear him racking the gun.
And it appears that some kind of enhancement has happened since this video was released. This video that Libby took is only 43 seconds and ends with the suspect approaching the 2 victims.
So apparently they saw this video twice, one that was not enhanced and then the other one that was enhanced where they could hear it better. They couldn't hear all the words. I'm assuming you'd probably need headphones, but many people who then would hear Richard Allen's voice, especially in the phone interviews, said that sounds like the bridge guy audio.
Defense claimed in opening statements that Allen's phone ping will prove he left at 2:15 p.m.
Are you talking about the shack? Oh, thanks, C-Wise. Yeah, I tried all the different uniforms. I did. I even showed what it looked like to kind of be like Ron Logan, because I was like, man, I am 6'3". I could kind of show what it'd be like with Ron Logan and a mustache. And if it was Ron Logan, remember Ron Logan had a big, poofy, pretty white mustache. And I would think at the very least, especially since they enhanced that, you'd be able to make that out. And anybody that thinks it's Ron Logan took a call at 2:09. 2:09. And we don't know how long that phone call is. I'm sure they do. But if it's longer than 5 minutes or 4 minutes, certainly Bridge Guy's not seen on the phone, so it couldn't be Ron Logan. That's a good question, Ellen. Again, I'm not an expert in guns. I'm not a big gun person. But it is a good question. But if the marks are identical at the end of the day with the extractor and the ejector, I mean, how you got to point, if you have to go through some other steps. I get the apples and oranges thing, but still, if it leaves, because obviously a fired bullet, it goes through the barrel and leaves striations, so there's much more, marks on it that are very unique to the gun, whereas a bullet that just gets ejected out, there's less markings, but they still say that, you can still match bullets to some degree. It's not as something that is used as much, obviously, because usually there's a fired bullet that they're usually working with. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And imagine, especially a hoodie, and you know how sometimes the hoodie will crown at the top, some of those hoodies that, yeah, of course. So that's Brad Weber's driveway right there. I just want to show this because, obviously one of the bombshells, and this is how desperate they got today. I think it even started yesterday because remember, this shocked everybody. And of course, especially the defense people, the whole van, because, Alan admitted to a van and that it had spooked him. And then Brad Weber came along and said, yeah, he came home at around 2:20, 20 to 25 minutes. He clocked off at 2:02. So 2:22, 20 minutes, 25 to 2:27, something like that. And it lines up perfectly because her phone would stop moving at 2:32. So they were probably down. Obviously Brad Weber wouldn't be able to see them because they're probably down below. And it's pretty steep hills. So I'm pretty sure you'd be paying attention where you're driving. But I still think they would probably been still on this side, but below. And the van would have passed by, and that would have freaked him out. But then, of course, with Brad Weber, blowing the lid off everything, the defense people, they went and said, oh, everybody's been talking about that white van. Everybody's been talking about that white van. I've covered this case. I didn't build this channel off this case, but I have never, ever heard of a van. Not to say a van hasn't been mentioned. I know, years back, they thought a van was in the picture back when with Abby on the bridge. They thought a van was parked in the back, but it's not. White Dodge Dart, no van, and 230 and Brad Weber. None of those all connected together. The van thing, and they were so desperate that they were literally pulling up Reddit posts, and this guy tried to make this, this Excel spreadsheet thing, and it was so desperate. Aggie says, or Aggie, I'm sorry. I thought there was an N in there. Aggie says, I wish Richard Allen would have testified. I mean, if you're innocent, I think I would. You have nothing to hide. But again, at the end of the day, they could not prove. Again, the big thing is the defense said that we'll prove that Richard Allen left by 2:15 or around there, but I guess that slipped their mind, or that's just another big check that they bounced, which is no surprise. Yeah, again, they want to say, oh, we've all been talking about this van. My ass, God. It just so ticks me off. Again, it's to the point where they think the video's fake. They think the picture of Abby, I didn't even know, and I feel so ashamed. I didn't even know that one of these people that I mentioned early on, has been going to the trial. I didn't know because she's got, I guess, maybe 2 channels or whatever, but she goes with another channel. I don't want to say the name, but her initials are AH, whatever. I think some of you guys know who I'm talking about. Definitely pro-defense. Seems intelligent, but I had no idea This chick is literally saying that Kelsey is part of the Odinist group, and it's so effing disgusting. I had no idea. And she's claiming, I'll show part of it, and I would love to make a debunk video on her claiming the picture of Abby on the bridge is fake. When that is taken from Snapchat, there would be so much metadata in that. Yeah. I think that's the one. B, badass. I had no idea. I was shocked. Nancy Grace, I watched her thing yesterday. My jaw hit the floor. I could not believe that this chick is literally, because the hair that was found in Libby's hand was Kelsey's, and that she's literally claiming that her sister was part of the Odinist group, and I yeah. It just makes me sick to my stomach to think people would do that. I'll show just a little part of it. So here's Rick with his beanie on. But yeah, so the phone stops at 2:32. No more movement. Oops. In his words, killed the girls, then I lived my life. I hope they put that in the closing arguments, the prosecution. Anyway, makes me sick. Let me see if there's anything updates, what's going on. But I thought it was interesting to show you guys. I have much more, but I kind of want to put some stuff together. And yeah, it's just a channel that very disgusting. To claim that the sister is involved in Odinist and that the hair proves it because it's her sister's. Her laundry was... Her sister's laundry is washed together. Of course, it's her sister's sweatshirt that she's wearing. Of course, Kelsey's hair is going to be found in Libby's hand because it was Kelsey's, Kelsey loaned it to her, and it was washed in the Germans, with clothes. It's so ridiculous. Pull reporter's transcription of court exhibit. Oh. Let me read this. This is weird. Okay. This morning, the patient was interviewed in his cell. Oh, this is from John Martin on June 20th. He had been wearing a uniform when he was taken to the cell, but chose to take it off and was in t-shirt and boxers. Several contusions on his face that had been self-induced are no longer as prominent. Eye contact was poor. He spoke very softly, but was also very briefly. He kept asking for Dr. Walla. He was coherent, spoke without loose associations or flight of ideas. He was oriented to person, place, time, day, and situation. So he's aware of time, day, what's going on around him. He has a constricted effect, but they say difficult to read this word. So I don't know, maybe it's something else. He said that he had self-harm ideations. He did not want to talk too much. What he did talk about was his concern for his wife. He said that he wanted to apologize to the families for the victims. He was eating his meals. He was keeping himself clean. A renew of logs showed that he was getting an adequate amount of sleep and eating most meals. Okay, so I think we've... Okay, so we've kind of gone over this. I thought this might have something more to it. Okay, let's go to the Reddit forum here, and we'll get finished up here, guys. And a huge shout out to my wonderful mods and anybody that donated. Of course, you guys are legends. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. I meant to turn that up. I think we're back down to 500. I think we'd be okay. We'll finish up here. Let me see if there's any videos. Oh. See what she's got. Okay. All right, let's see what she's got to say. Okay, you can see this. Oh, you just can't hear it. There we go. Okay. So this was just uploaded apparently just 22 minutes ago.
Adjourned early today at approximately 2:15 p.m. All testimony was done, all rebuttal done. All that is left now is for closing arguments, which will take place tomorrow, and then jury deliberations in the state of Indiana versus Richard Allen. I'm Amy McCarty for the Carroll County Comet. This afternoon, we had cross-examination from Bradley Rosie of Dr. John Martin. Martin is the Indiana Department of Corrections psychiatrist that treated Richard Allen at Westville Correctional Facility. Martin said that on cross-examination, the longest period that he actually saw Allen was for approximately 30 minutes. Other times he would see him at the door of his cell. Rosie asked him about the difference between a one-man cell and solitary confinement. Martin said that a one-man cell is where someone would be held individually. Solitary confinement is often where prisoners go when they're being punished. It's to keep them out of the general population, to keep them away from other inmates. He said that Richard Allen hadn't done anything at that time to warrant him being placed in what he would consider solitary confinement, except he believed it was because he was a safe keeper, and the intent was to keep him safe, to keep him alive. As the testimony went on this afternoon, Brad Rosie showed a video from June 20th. If you watched our earlier video this afternoon, June 20th is the day that Martin testified. Allen told him that he wanted to apologize to the families of his victims. He said at that time, Allen was not experiencing psychosis. In his notes, which we reviewed after the hearing, which were part of evidence, it was stated that on that day, Allen had been 7 weeks without any signs of psychosis, and that all Haldol was discontinued at that time. The long-term Haldol, it was actually 50 milligrams, not 15. As we had said earlier, that has been clarified. It was 50 milligrams of Haldol he was receiving in an injection every 4 weeks. That Haldol was discontinued because he had gone a long period of time without psychosis. The additional Haldol that he was receiving, a smaller dose of oral Haldol, was discontinued because Allen was continually refusing to take that medicine, the notes said. Rosie then showed a video from June 20th of Allen. It was what we called movement video throughout the facility. The TV monitor was displayed to the entire courtroom so everyone could see. This is the same video that they showed on Saturday. That video showed Allen in a medical transport chair strapped in 3 different locations being transported in for what we believe was to have his vitals taken, a basic medical examination.
I just want to pause it here. I just knew it. So one of the things on Murder Sheet, I do got to mention this as well. Sorry, I just want to interrupt for a second. Is obviously the juror was shown a bunch of stuff by the defense, and you can't blame the defense, because that's their job. But obviously, I'm sure they showed a bunch of stuff that was probably disturbing that happened to Alan, but probably had no context to it. Or majority didn't have context. I know some of them had, were hour long, but they're sped up. But the ones that were only like 3-5 minutes, I'm sure those were completely taken out of context. Probably showing him, one of them supposedly he's being showered and he's handcuffed. Well, speaking of that guy that was interviewed, Pablo, he talks about, hey, you know what? You're going to be handcuffed, taken to the shower, and if you refuse, well, guess what? Their only option is to handcuff you and wash you themselves, because if you're refusing that, that's the only reason they would be doing that. Especially if he's smearing himself with certain stuff and refuses to clean up. Obviously, that's a problem. And sorry, just making sure. Anyway, thank you, Carol. God bless you, Kat. You're amazing. But yeah, Pablo said, yeah, this, he's like, oh, wow. Because one of the times, I guess it showed him, I'm trying to recall. But anyway, Pablo said that it was shown where he was like handcuffed, again, where he's being escorted. And he said that, is the tasing situation. So apparently they showed him, I'm assuming, where he got tased. While he's in a cell, and he says the only reason they do that is because they got to take him somewhere, and to do that he's got to go in and get handcuffed first. It's procedure, because you could go and attack another inmate while you're walking outside the halls, or vice versa. It's all procedure, and if you refuse, and he said, this is what's funny, is Pablo said, wait, he didn't get pepper sprayed first? Man, this guy's lucky. I thought it was hilarious. It's such a great interview. Anyway, check it out after the show. Lori Lee from yesterday. But yeah, such great insight for those that don't really, because I don't either. I don't understand prison systems or jail, whatever. And anyways, so yeah, he said, yeah, probably a lot of this stuff is normal, and it was probably taken out of context. So anyway, I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that. Yeah, context is... and I think it's so funny because, there's a certain pro-defense guy, I'm sure some people know who I'm talking about, I'm not going to mention his name, who has always context is king, so hypocritical and ironic. But anyway, continuing on. Thank you, Kat, again, Carol, for the donation. God bless you. And... Spaghetti Westerns. God bless you. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. But let's listen to some more here, some more insight. Then we'll got a few things, and then we'll finish up here.
Alan appeared in the video to just stare off into the distance. He didn't really respond to officers or to the doctor, with the exception of at one point he did lift his hand so that the doctor could look at his hand. The doctor took his blood pressure. He examined his back and underneath his belly on his skin and listened with a stethoscope. Alan just stared off and didn't say anything during that video of him. Now, when Alan in the courtroom, when Richard Allen actually viewed the video this time, he did not see it on Saturday. He at first cranked his neck so that he could see, and then he turned away, covering his eyes with his hand. At one point, it appeared he might be crying. Then he continued to look at his family on the front row, his wife, Kathy, his mother, Janice, his stepfather, and his sister. He became teary-eyed as his wife and mother both cried at viewing the video. Rosie asked Martin if, after watching that video, he could still say that Alan was not in a state of psychosis on June 20th. And there's some mixed reviews on what he said according to the Media Coalition. Some heard him say yes, some heard him say no. And so we're going to try to seek some clarification on that. But he did say that he stands by when Stacey Diener talked to him later, he said he stood by what he said, and that was that when he spoke to Richard Allen early in the morning on June 20th, the video was from 12 in the afternoon, when he spoke to Richard Allen early in the morning of that day, Richard Allen was not in a state of psychosis, and that he believed that Allen knew what he was saying. That's all we have for you today. We're going to be back tomorrow. Hopefully, we do not have a seat in the courtroom, so we do have our publisher standing in line for us, as the line has already started. There are now only 18 seats in the courtroom for the general public, and those change at noon. So we're going to do our best to be there to tell you about the closing arguments. Each side will have 2.5 hours to present. There will be a break in between possibly, and then the state will have an opportunity to rebuttal for their argument. After that, jury instructions will be given and the jury will go into deliberations.
I got goosebumps.
We could have a decision in this case by the end of the day Friday or possibly even Saturday. Stay tuned to the Carroll County Comets Facebook page and our website, where all of our stories on this case are offered free. I'm Amy McCarty with the Carroll County Comet, coming to you from the Carroll County Courthouse. Have a good night.
Oops. Yeah, it's a good question, Andy. Is it Andy? Yeah, I think it's Andy. Yeah, we can clear that up. This is what I understand. Again, I don't know everything. From what I understand is, so I think and there could have been two situations. So really it's kind of, we're still kind of left up to speculation here. But clearly his intention was to SA them, but then saw and or heard a van, obviously, and I just showed, the area where, you can see the road. Oops. So here's kind of the area here. Let me back it up. Yeah, right there. So here's the crime scene, right? And here's the road. And so either he could have hauled them down the two little hills. There's one hill that goes down to where the road is. And then there's another steep hill. There's kind of this nice enclosure back here where, you're really secluded. And obviously, if you're down here and the van's up here, he's not going to be able to see you. And so it's possible his intention was to take him here. That was actually a theory by another person a long time ago. Theory he had for a long time. And it could be true. And that spooked him. Obviously, I don't think people really understand how quickly things can, with Brian Koberger, allegedly, killed four college students in 8-9 minutes. And people have a hard time believing that, but it's, you got two in bed sleeping. Things go much quicker than people realize. But yeah, it's possible that he could have marched them across the creek first. And then again, obviously you'd see the van and that could have spooked him. So it's, will we ever really know that? But that is a good question. I kind of think, let me know in the chat, I kind of think they were still over here and maybe heard the van and started marching them across. And that's possible. Maybe even they had already been forced to strip on that side. And then somehow Abby was able to get in Libby's clothes. And then, I don't know, it does kind of get messy there where if they derubbed there, and it's still possible. But I think more than likely it was probably across. But yeah, it's still weird that he would have them derobe. That is where it kind of gets a little confusing. But again, I'm sure there's, obviously details we may never fully know unless maybe, he confesses more. Yeah, the phone stopped moving at 2:32. So boom, whatever happened at 2:32. So if it was 2:27, remember it could have been as early as he said 20 to 25 minutes. So it could have been as early as 2:22. That leaves 10 minutes for them to cross, and him to attack the girls. That's plenty of time. Again, 8 minutes, 4 college kids were killed. So, again, 5 to 10 minutes, even, up to 10 minutes, that's still a long time. Again, they only just crossed the creek, and then that's when, sadly, these poor girls' lives were, snuffed out. Yeah, I think, the concept of time, it's, again, that's why, people have a hard time with Brian Koberger. But again, two of them were in bed sleeping. So, I mean, that would have been, minute, it snuffed their two lives out pretty quickly. And yeah. Yeah, again, there's definitely still some stuff that I certainly have questions about. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever have the all the answers. Definitely wild, and you can see why. The argument for the defense is, they bring in Carter. I know they brought him in to say that they got rid of the FBI eventually because they wanted the evidence back, but they always kind of thought, there could be at least two people involved, and I think everybody kind of thought that, especially how weird the crime scene was. And just because they may think there may have been two people doesn't mean that, that's what they're banking on. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could have up to 10 minutes, and that's, what if he got there 15 minutes? He says 20 to 25 minutes. What if, he hit all the lights and he got there in like 16, 17 minutes, and then you got 13 minutes, so many variables there. So, again, it's, like I said, Brian Koberger snuffed out 4 lives in 8 minutes. So, and, on 2 different floors. So, yeah, it's amazing how fast stuff like that happens. It's terrible. Yeah, again, no politics. I know probably some people are super happy. Some people may be not so happy. I know that was probably a big or a bad day for some people. But yeah, we try to just, we don't want to alienate anybody here. I was going to go over this stuff, but I'm going to save this for tomorrow because, we've already gone. I usually end around this time. Let me just take one more look, see if there's any more videos real quick. But let me know. Are you guys kind of surprised that we're here already? I mean, the defense literally went. That only took 2.5 days. Really, I mean, you could say 3, but when you kind of add up the times, because they kind of started like when the state closed like 3/4 into the day, I think, maybe halfway into the day. And that was on a Thursday, I think. And then so they had a full day Friday. And obviously Saturday is just a half day. So there's 2 half days. And then Monday. So yeah, I would say 3 days, I guess, in total. And then, of course, he had plenty of time. He didn't. So if the girls were already dead by 2:32. Obviously, he's not seen until 3:57, so he has over an hour, more or less. 3:57, 2:32. Yeah, so he has over an hour to clean up, throw clothes into the creek. He's probably searching for the bullet, maybe. Yeah. But what I'm going to try to do, if I get some time, is I'm going to get all the confessions in order. Then, I want to get the confessions in order, unlog all those, and then a couple other things. But remember, they didn't change their clothes. I mean, or he didn't. They always thought the killer, it was always kind of speculated the killer. Well, the defense speculated that. But they probably both were undressed. And then Abby was either forced or she got into Libby's clothing. And then the other clothing was that was belonged to Abby's and some of Libby's was thrown out. Yeah. Okay. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say, man, so as you heard her say, the people are already getting in line, which, you can't blame people, especially with closing arguments. It's kind of the same thing with opening statements. Anybody that heard Murder Sheet last night, I felt so bad for them, because they have, obviously, they have people that wait in line for them, but because they have this crappy system where during lunch it resets. So what people have been doing recently, defense people, according to the Murder Sheet, says they've been getting in line early these past few days, and at the very least yesterday, and got in there early to take up a bunch of seats at the beginning of the day, and then they left as court started in the morning, now leaving those seats open, to get back in line to do that again, now leaving people without seats, and whoever's ever in order, now it screws up the order and everything. And so that Murder Sheet wasn't able to get into the second half of the day. And it's because they're, protesting out there. And I'm all for protesting, but, that's, to me, it's so childish. Again, it blows my mind, because that's the only thing we have is, these journalists and people that can, not everybody's going to be able to write the same exact notes, depending on where people are sitting. Some people may hear things, others may not. So, it's nice to have a nice group of, different people, especially on both sides, to kind of give their point of views. And then when you have that kind of stuff going on, then you're not going to get that. And I just think it's so, again, these are adults doing this, and it boggles my mind. Oh, it just boggles my mind. Yeah, I think Abby had like her bra, one of her bras on, and then just Libby's pants. And Abby did have her red. I think she had a red. Did she have her? Yeah, I think she had a red thing on, and then a sweatshirt and everything else. But anyway, yep. Oh, I know what I was gonna look at real quick. I just wanted to see if there's any other videos, updates by anybody. We'll get out of here. Amy's correct on a report earlier. 50 milligrams of the injection. Okay. But yeah. And then here's somebody bringing up such a great point. The defense opened with saying we're going to prove he was gone by 2:15. And we're going to show that cell phone pings are inconsistent. But yeah, nothing. No alibi for Alan. Nothing about, what he was like before or after. I would think. I think Kathy Allen would have been the biggest witness if you were innocent. The person who knows you the best, and you live with. To bring her on, say, yeah, before February 13th, he was fine. After, he was fine. Nothing, no character, really, no character witness. Nothing. Oh, one more thing. Okay, so just one last thing I just wanted to touch on. So, that creator that I was talking about earlier, I can't believe that this chick would go this far to claim that this photo is faked. And it's a collage between, I don't know if I can find it. Let me see. And I'll show you just, Abby Williams. Abby Williams, baseball glove. Oh, I might need to put in Delphi. She got this baseball glove. There's that one. Oh, I might not be able to find it. Let's see. Come on. Where are you? She got this baseball glove. Oh, she's got the shirt on. Let's see. Pictures. If I can find it. Oh, I should have looked at this up earlier. Oh, there it is. Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, let me save this real quick. Let me show you guys what they're trying to... This is so absurd. So they're saying that this picture... second. That they combined a picture of the bridge taken by somebody else. It's the other bridge photo. They combined that with this photo that she's wearing here. Oh, let me move this over. And basically she's saying this photo's fake, and it was a picture of the bridge just by itself, which one, if I had time, the bridge, it's not in this format. It's a different, it's not exactly like this. So one, you just throw this right out. Two, she says this is like photographed in. Well, there's a huge issue. One, she's wearing different pants. One, she's got her hand up to her nose. And there would be, if this was like a Photoshop picture of something where you're cutting this out, which you could clearly cut this out and put it here, but you could probably make it look pretty good. Make this picture, put her in here. The shadowing and everything would look ridiculous because you're taking a photo with shadows at different angles. She doesn't even really have much shadows on her here. You would have to be so good. If you were this good, I hope you're working for, the movies or whatever, to be able to Photoshop this in. It looks so obvious. It's just, I'm telling you, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it'd be so, there's just no way. There's just no way. If you're saying you could Photoshop this in, and now you're going to put a jacket over her, and you're going to add in the shadows, because obviously this has got different shadows on it. So now you've got to, and her head's not turned the same way. She's got her hand up to her nose, so I don't know how you'd remove that without disturbing any of this. There'd be blatant stuff here that you would have taken out. Or if you cropped in a different picture of her head, again, I could go into I could just, thousands of things. This would be a nightmare and just impossible without imperfections everywhere to show that this is a fake. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is, again, and the person that is talking about this clearly is smart, because she can speak very well. It just blows my mind that she would suggest something like this, and then of course claim that the sisters were behind, or her sister was behind it. I hate to go down this road, but I just, again, I would love to have time to debunk how ridiculous this is, but to get the shadowing and everything just right, you would literally, it would have to be a photo, the same photo with her wearing all the same stuff. And that would still even be a bitch, because likely this photo would have been taken with the sun in a different spot, with shadowing, different areas. There's so many things that this person clearly was not even thinking about. And at the end of the day, there's metadata, because this is a Snapchat. So it's so ridiculous. Todd. Oh, so here we got 25 years. I'm not even a Photoshop expert. But I do editing, and I understand, editing things in green screen, plates. Obviously that's something you learn. Plates, it's kind of more with movies, but same thing with photos. Yeah, AI, right, yeah. There you go, yep. And that's the thing I was going to say, 2017, right. Yeah, we've come a long way since 2017, but, yep. Thank you, Todd, appreciate that, yeah. It's a logistic nightmare. Yeah. It'd just be so much evidence of fake. It would just be blatant. And then, again, you would have to have the same exact photo. And here's just the last one that's just absolutely laughable. I just have to show it since I've already gone this far. Sorry. Delphi moan on high bridge. I don't even know how this is possible. Is it this? Which one did she say? God, I want to say it was this one here. It may have been this one here. I want to say it was another one, but it was something like this. But yeah, it's clearly taken from a different angle, different time of day. I think it's looking the other way, isn't it? I mean, again, you could just, it's so stupid. Yeah, you're looking the other way. They're looking the opposite way. How? Yeah. Anyway, I'm just dumbfounded. I'm speechless. But yeah, and this person literally gets almost 100,000 views in her videos. And of course, I've been a YouTuber for 2.5 years longer. Of course, if I did videos, conspiracy videos do well. They do. And there's nothing wrong with, when you do conspiracy videos about aliens, you're not harming anybody. But, and even, there's a line, with, especially when it's, you're speculating in true crime, when you don't know how any of the details and facts, so you're kind of speculating and maybe kind of going down some conspiracy rabbit holes. As long as it's, responsible, that's fine. But when you go down this kind of route, and you're just basically saying, oh, just, everything's a deep fake, whatever, then, it's just ridiculous. So, Record Desk, thank you so much. I appreciate the 5 gifted Mob Crew memberships. God bless you guys. If you did get gifted, please thank Record Desk. And we will be back tomorrow with closing arguments. This will be interesting. I can't wait to hear what... I'm more interested to hear what the defense has got to say. Because I know if I was sitting on that jury, I'd be like, man, I still don't know shnikes about Richard Allen, Who is Richard Allen? Oh, yeah, there you go, Todd, right. Yeah, they hired, yeah, they tried to touch up the bridge guy. And, yeah, you could definitely tell the imperfections there, right? Yep. Yeah, facts and logic. Again, there's a time and place for speculation, but right now, 2 girls and families, who've been waiting much longer than, poor Richard Allen in his time. He got to live his life free for 5.5 years, quote from him himself. So, screw him. All right, guys. As always, thank you to Olivia, Sensei, Jocelyn, Jennifer. I don't know if I saw Mitzi in here, but as always, God bless you guys for all your hard work. And we'll be back same time tomorrow. And we'll be at this time tomorrow. There'll be deliberation. So I can't wait. Yeah, well, unless you have a crazy story where you want to throw, the family under the bus, which is disgusting, disgusting. And this person's been on some pretty big other YouTube channels. I can't believe they've actually had her on, and I'm like, holy shit, wow, that's on you when the truth comes out. So, all right, guys, much love. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And again, just one last thing, with Aiden Clune, some developments there. So we'll be talking about that soon this weekend. All right, guys. And pet outros, I will get to them. I promise. It's just crazy right now. So I will do a pet outro, but I will get the new pets in there. I promise.